Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Natasha Krisdianti. So, today's lesson we want to talk about narrative text for 7th grade student. So, do you like reading books or watching movies like Disney movies, cinema movies, or you have heard a storytelling? So those are all is an example of narrative text. The definition of narrative text is a story text that is imaginative but still has a coherent structure from beginning to the end. And then we will see the purpose of the narrative text. So, the social function of narrative text is to amuse or entertain the reader or listener. Okay, now let's see the generic structure of narrative text. So, every text must have a structure because we are expected to be able to write narratives in our daily lives. So, the first generic structure is orientation. In the orientation, you will get information about the characters of the story. So, this orientation becomes the background at the beginning of the story. Okay, then this gets up becomes a complication or conflict or problem that usually occurs between the protagonist and the antagonist, or one character with another character. Like that. Then after that, there is a resolution. So in this resolution is how to resolve the conflict and try to solve the problem. Okay, after that, there's a coda or orientation. Or if you have heard moral value, so every narrative text must have a moral value that we can take lesson from the story. So not only do we get entertained, but we also get a moral that can inspire us. Okay, the next is language features. So the language features of narrative text for the first is using past simple tense. So is it okay to use other past tense? Yes, of course you can. The important thing is that it is in past because this story is like to having happened and being retold. Okay, and the second is using adverb of time like once upon a time, one day, long time ago, and etc. And the third is using direct and indirect speech. For example of direct speech is Cinderella said, I'm so sad. Okay, and the example of indirect speech is Cinderella said that she was sad. Okay, now do you understand the narrative text? Okay, now we will read one text and try to find the structure of following the text. This narrative text is a fairy tale called Cinderella. You must have heard it because it is a very interesting fairy tale. Okay, let's read it. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there lived a girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters. Her stepmother and two sisters didn't like Cinderella. They treated Cinderella very badly. Cinderella usually did the hardest work at home, like scrubbing the floor, cleaning pots and pans, and preparing meals for the family, and so on. One day, a dance party will be held by the royal family to find the prince's wife. Cinderella wants to go to the castle, but her stepmother asks her to stay at home and do the housework. Cinderella cried. Then a fairy stood beside her. Wow. Why are you crying, Cinderella? Asked the fairy. Because I want to go to the castle and dance party, but my stepmother insists that I stay at home. Besides, I don't have a beautiful dress, said Cinderella. Then the fairy changed Cinderella's ugly dress into a most beautiful dress and with beautiful slippers. The fairy also turned the pumpkin into a carriage and mice into 6 with horses. Cinderella could finally go to the dance party, but she had to be back before midnight before the spell ended. At the dance party, Cinderella amazed everyone there, including the prince. The prince asked her to dance. Cinderella had a great time there. However, suddenly she heard the sound of a clock, the first tick of midnight. Remembering the fairy's word, Cinderella ran home. However, she lost one of her slippers in the ballroom. The prince took the slippers and would look for a girl whose foot matched the slippers. A few days later, the prince announced that he would marry the girl whose foot matched with the slipper. His stepsister tried on the slipper, but they were too small for them. No matter how hard they stuck their toes into them. In the end, the king's soldier allowed Cinderella to try on the slippers. She stuck out her foot, and the page put the slipper on. The slipper fit perfectly. And finally, she was escorted to the castle, and the prince was very happy to see her again. They got married and lived happily ever after. Okay, we can find in the first paragraph is the orientation. The second and third paragraphs are the complication or the part where the problems start to arise, and the last paragraph is the resolution where the problems are solved and the story ends happily. And we can also find out the language features from the simple past tense such as lived, cried, changed, amazed, like that. And then the adverb of time, like once upon a time, one day, a few days later. And then finally is to describe the conclusion of event. And then the direct and indirect speech. Like direct speech is like the fairy asked Cinderella, like, why are you crying, Cinderella? Is it a direct speech? And then the example of indirect speech is Cinderella told the fairy that her stepmother instead she stayed at home and that she didn't have a beautiful dress. Okay, now from the narrative text, you can answer this question to practice your understanding again. There are 5 questions, so you can answer them. Thank you. Okay, that's all the explanation of narrative text. Thank you. I'm Natasha Kristianti. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.